HHN 32 is less than a month away now, and I honestly cannot contain my excitement. And to pass the time before the event, us HHN fans have been creating our own dream years of events we would want to see come to the park that probably never will. I saw my good friend over at Lash TV do this video, and I said, hey, let me jump on that. So, let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horror Fiends. I'm your certified horror dad, Kyle Beatty, and today we're talking about my dream year, this amazing concept that I've created for a year that probably will never happen for HHN. It is August, which means in less than a month we're going to be inside the park for opening weekend for HHN 32, finally getting to experience all of the scare zones, the icon and the house, the shows, everything, the resorts. So much to experience that we'll be putting on the channel for you guys, but that is still, like 20 something days away. So let's talk about something that I said before that my good friend Lash TV covered, and that is the dream year for me for Horror Nights. And this is a great concept for me. It probably will never happen, but let's dive straight into it. So to really understand my dream year, the concept I've created for my own little special year of HHN, you have to understand a few things. First thing is that, again, I am an icon fanboy. So if you don't like the icons, you probably will not like my year. Secondly, this has to be an anniversary year because of how massive I made this concept and the amount of, nostalgia for HHN. And honestly, not even HHN, going back to Fright Nights for this year, it'd have to be an anniversary year if it ever happened. And with what we know about HHN 32 and the whole Dr. Oddfellow thing, I figured we should feature him in this event as well. So here's the concept that I created for my dream year. So Dr. Oddfellow, in revenge of the events of HHN 17, when Jack supposedly killed him and took over his Carnival of Carnage, Dr. Oddfellow figures out that Jack is alive and he is trapped inside of this lantern, the one that is controlled by that icon Fear. So with his Carnival of Oddities and with the immense immortal power that Dr. Oddfellow has, he stages a coup to retrieve the lantern to let Jack out and finally kill him for the final time. But obviously that lantern does belong to someone else that we know and fear, pun intended on that, and that is Fear. And obviously Fear will not give control of his lantern over that easy. So this whole year, this dream year I've created is going to revolve around that. It's going to revolve around Dr. Oddfellow getting control of his lantern and Fear not being okay with that. So this is how the opening ceremony is going to go. Let's say this is all announced and you're hyped, you're coming up to the gates for Universal, for HHN, and this is what's going on at 6:30. Dr. Oddfellow walks out with his Carnival of Oddities, the one you probably will see this year at the event, but something's different this time. Instead of promising you immortality like he is during HHN 32, this dream year he is going to be offering you the event of a lifetime. He now holds out this lantern, the lantern if you've gone to HHN before. If you don't, that is Fear's lantern. He holds out Fear's lantern and promises the best act yet for his carnival. And that act is, of course, killing the true icon of HHN, Jack the Clown. Now, obviously, how did Dr. Oddfellow get control of the lantern? That is not specified here, but we know one thing. He didn't kill Fear. He didn't just knock Fear off the board. Fear is back and he's pissed. So during this opening ceremony, while Dr. Oddfellow is promising you this, act of the century, Fear and Fear's minions will invade the Carnival of Oddities to get control of that lantern back. And in the scuffle, what's gonna happen? Dr. Oddfellow is going to be face to face with Fear, and Dr. Oddfellow is going to drop the lantern. And the lantern is going to be destroyed for the first time in HHN history, releasing all of the icons, all of the previous icons, and the HHN history trapped inside. And once that happens, lights would go crazy in that opening ceremony, the fire would come up and things like that, and that's when the gates would open while all the characters run to their zones. Now that sounds like a cool concept if you like the icons, right? That sounds like a lore-heavy year, right? So all the houses will follow that same suit, so let's dive straight into the houses. So the first house you will get to is where Hellblock Horror was, that little area by Minion Mayhem. Yeah, that's where the first one will be. We're going to get into the houses first, and then we're going to get into the scare zones. But the first house will be Dungeon of Terror Retold, Luck Be a Lady. So one thing I wanted to, incorporate in my dream year is every single icon that's been featured at the event. And so all of the original houses basically are going to be icons, and a lot of them are going to contain several icons at once. We've seen Dungeon of Terror back in Fright Nights, back in the early years of HHN, and we saw it again with the storyteller telling the story of it. This time it's kind of that same, vibe with the storyteller telling the story, but this time she's interrupted by Lady Luck. So if you look into Lady Luck's past, the whole lore behind Lady Luck, she has seduced prisoners before. She has seduced kind of, these people to take a chance with her, take luck with her, test their luck. And this is going to be that kind of concept. Storyteller is going to be telling the story of the Dungeon of Terror that we've heard before. We've seen it at the event before and before. But this time, Lady Luck's going to interrupt that and take a chance with luck with all these prisoners and even the storyteller. This will be a very cool house as far as set design goes, and including 2 great icons inside of that would make this house a banger for sure. But let's keep moving through the park to the next house that I created, and that is going to be over by the stage by Rip Ride Rocket, and that house is going to be Cirque du Fear Icons Collide. Now, if you can catch the vibe of this one, this is going to be the circus house, right? So like I said, Dr. Oddfellow promised to you this act of him killing Jack, and that's exactly what this house is. This house is icon versus icon. It's going to be Dr. Oddfellow going after Jack, and Jack going after Dr. Oddfellow, and also Chance helping out Jack in that same setting. Going to be going through this whole history between Dr. Oddfellow and Jack, kind of like what's going to go on in the Twisted Origins house of HHN 32, but this time it's going to be up to modern date, and they're going to be fighting in the Carnival of Carnage. Now, I feel like this could be a house where there could be a different victor each time, kind of like, Legends Collide or HHN Icons Captured, something like that, where you have a different victory each time. You could either have Jack win, you could have Chance win the whole thing, or you could have Dr. Oddfellow win. I think this house would be awesome, just them fighting each other, going through the history of the Carnival of Thrills into the Carnival of Carnage, and just seeing the immortal power of both of these foes and having Chance on Jack's side as well. I mean, that would be a fantastic house in my opinion. And the next house we'd get to would be over by Jimmy Fallon, where Halloween has been, where Texas Chainsaw has been. And that house is going to be Documentary to Death Palace Theater. Now this one is going to be 3 icons in one house that kind of have a similar vibe. So this is going to be set in the caretaker's world. It's going to be set at his funeral home, his funeral parlor, with his whole family. And you're going to have the director show up to film a documentary about all of the deaths that happened there. And throughout the course of filming this film, they finish it and they send it to a movie theater. And what movie theater is that? That is going to be the Universal Palace Theater, the one that is ushered in by a certain someone. Now you're going to have the caretaker and the director go for their fan screening, their premiere of their new film. And they're going to run into the usher, and let's say that the caretaker and the director, they talk a lot, right? They're not quiet people, and that's going to infuriate the usher. And so once you get into the Palace Theater, you're going to be coming across a rivalry between the caretaker, the director, and the usher. Now, again, this could be something like the house I just previously mentioned, where there's a different victor each time, or this could be someone that is left up to you guys and there's no real victor. They kind of all go down in the end. That's exactly what's going to happen in this house. You're going to walk into Caretaker's world where they're filming this documentary. Director's so excited to film another snuff film. They're going to send it to their local theater, which happens to just be the Universal Palace one, and they're going to rival with the usher inside of his theater. Then we're going to get to our first IP house, and this is one that has needed to happen and almost happened at one point in actual HHN history. The first year I went to the event, there was supposed to be a certain IP, but this year, in my dream year, that's exactly what would be here. That would be Scream, Terror, and Woodsboro. Now, this would be something that needed to come to the event for a long time. This would be their heavy draw-in, the one that they post first, like their first announcement that pulls in everybody, kind of like Stranger Things or, The Last of Us this year. And I believe this one, I would have it follow, the original first film. So we'll start off with Scream, the first one, 1996, following Sidney Prescott, Casey Becker, and the Billy Loomis and Stu Macher ghost faces. This would be a fantastic house. I don't even care if it was bad. In my world, it'd be fantastic. And this is my event that I'm creating, so it's going to be fantastic. And the house right next to it is also going to be fantastic as well. It's going to be another original featuring some amazing icons. And this is going to be something that is going to draw old HHN fans to the past. This one is going to be called Lantern Unleashed: Return to Fright Nights. So in the lore of Fear, the icon Fear, or Adaru, I mentioned this a lot in the deep dive I did, but his whole lore went all the way back to Fright Nights. So in this case, obviously the lantern is unleashed in the opening ceremony, and Fear is trying to contain all his heralds back into it, while also capturing Dr. Oddfellow to prevent any other harm coming to his lantern. He's basically picking up the pieces in this house, and those pieces also resemble the past. He has to go back to the past to 1991, to Universal's Fright Nights, where he began, where he took control of the Universal monsters for the first time. And that's where he's going to try to regain some of his power to build up the lantern again. So you're going to basically go through some amazing set pieces that were from 1991. You're going to feature the Rat Lady back. You're going to have Robosaurus's head somewhere in there. Maybe even a cameo from Bill and Ted. You're going to have some amazing things in this house while Fear is trying to regain his power and basically glue back the pieces of the lantern all together. And at the end of the house, basically will be a giant, I feel like, room filled with fire, or like the lighting of fire, and Fear just holding his reconstructed lantern back to full power to capture Dr. Oddfellow and the icons again. I feel like this would be a fantastic house that I want to see. So if we keep moving along, right? Let's keep moving along. That was a fantastic house. I know. Thank you. Pat on the back for me, right? We're going to keep moving along to our sprung tents now. And our sprung tents don't really stop either. We're going to have two fantastic houses over here. First one is going to be the return of this person right here that I'm wearing. Bloody Mary back at the event with Reflections of Fear broken pieces. Now this is going to follow obviously the original Reflections of Fear house, finally having Bloody Mary back at the event, and her learning of these other icons that basically are trapped in the same sphere as she was, but she was trapped even further, right? Universal didn't even mention her. Obviously we know why, because of the licensing. But in my world, Universal didn't mention her because she was trapped even further in the lantern. So this Broken Pieces house is going to follow the events of her being escaped from the lantern, but her having actually some really bad trauma with it, right? Bloody Mary is honestly a very underappreciated icon as far as being more of a, you know, not as much of a scare, more of a victim in some sense. I know that's weird to say, but in some sense, yes. I mean, she basically screams when she breaks through a mirror because she hurt herself. So I feel like this is going to follow the trauma of what she endured inside of the deeper parts of the lantern that the other icons didn't get to experience. So you're going to see some pretty scary things in here and have some of like the, you know, past scare zones from Halloween Horror Nights 2008 in this. You're going to have the scary tales, you're going to have the hollows, things like that inside of here. And it's just going to be her, you know, trapped inside her own mind. Although she's free from the lantern, Bloody Mary is trapped in her own mind. And you might see a cameo from one Boris Schuster in that house. And that house is also going to connect to the one in the next sprung tent. And that is going to be the legendary Truth Halloween Horror Nights. Right? Boris Schuster has been experiencing all these different events with Dr. Mary Agana. He investigated the case files. He investigated a million things to the fact where he's finally gotten to the end of it, right? He's back to this land, this world that is called Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando. And he is confused because he is going through this, you know, this world with scare actors, with people getting taken because they went alone, right? And he's going to get to this constructed office of his office back in New York. And he's going to be confused because this isn't his office, but he's going to be confused. So you're going to follow Boris Schuster all throughout the park of Universal, create some kind of set pieces that are a resemblance to the actual park, to what's actually going on at HHN. And he's actually going to be there investigating everything that's going on. Finally, to the helm of why you should never go alone. Then we're going to get to our final houses here. And there are some IPs. They're IPs, and they're IPs I've wanted to see at the event. Some have been there before, but some haven't. And so let's get into our first one. That is going to be based on a video game that is going to be Dead by Daylight Into the Fog. So if you played the Dead by Daylight game, you know that there is some immense lore behind everything inside of that game as far as the entity and all the killers in that game go, and even the survivors. I feel like this house could follow along that entire story, obviously without the licensed killers that are featured in the game, but with these original characters, you could make some really cool scares inside of this realm. Then we're going to get into the Netflix house. Obviously, they have their partnership with Netflix, so I wanted to throw a Netflix house inside of here. And it's not one you expect. It's not going to be Stranger Things. It's not going to be Wednesday. What I want to see at HHN is The Witcher. That is a house I would love to see featured there. They have a bunch of monsters, a bunch of sets they could use for scares, immense sets. I'd love to see The Witcher going on. I mean, they're doing Dueling Dragons this year, so it's not far off. They've done Nightingales. It's not far off. We could see a Witcher house. And so in my dream event, it'd be The Witcher. Then we get to our final house, which is one that I love dearly, that I've experienced before. And let's make it come back. Call it Freddy vs. Jason, Crystal Lake Dreams. I know this has happened before. They've done Freddy vs. Jason. They've done Freddy and Jason separately. But I want to see him again. That was a fantastic house. Purely for the nostalgia factor for me going to HHN 25. I want to see that again, so make that happen. Now let's get into the scare zones. We have some great lore heavy houses, icon years. Let's get into the scare zones and see what's going on inside of them. All right, so obviously in Minion Land, or Production Central, we will have Oddfellows Lantern of Fear. This is going to be the battle between the Minions of Fear and Oddfellows Oddities. Obviously, I don't think I should have Oddfellow or Fear in the zone because they're in their own separate houses at this point, but having their minions fight each other in this zone would be fantastic. So that's what you walk into right when you go into the park. Then we're going to get to New York, and New York is going to be very similar to what New York is this year. But with this one, it's going to be Vamp 91 Bloody Halloween. This is going to be set at Universal's Fright Nights 1991. And we're going to have the Vamps going to Halloween Horror Nights. So, like I said, there's a lot of past being driven into this year, and this scare zone is going to be right next to the Lantern Unleashed house that returns to Fright Nights, and it's all going to connect, right? Obviously, Fear in that house is going to be going back to Fright Nights to regain some of his powers, to collect the pieces of the lantern he's lost, and that's going to reflect in the scare zone right outside because of Fear's power being so immense. So we're going to be following the Vamps once again in 1991. Then we're going to get to San Francisco, and this scare zone is going to be the Vanity Gala. Following the Vanity Ball scare zone we've gotten at HHN before. I feel like this was a fantastic scare zone in my opinion, so let's make it bolder and better. Instead of just being a runway, this is a whole event. This is a red carpet event for these, devilish creations, these plastic surgery creations. And that is going to be the Vanity Gala and San Francisco. Then we're going to get to Central Park, and there's something I always loved about Central Park back a few years ago. I mean, it hasn't been too long, but the pumpkins being in the trees. Obviously, the creation of Little Boo was then, and so let's follow that, right? Obviously, Pumpkin Lord was an icon. Even though he wasn't marketed super well, Pumpkin Lord was an icon. So we'll make this one Booville, Realm of the Pumpkin. And in this case, we're going to be following Little Boo trying to escape the realm of the pumpkin, which is ruled by the Pumpkin Lord. So you'll have the Pumpkin Lord in the scare zone, and also Little Boo in the scare zone, and those pumpkins in the trees that have been in Central Park before. Now, this is something I'd want to see at the event, and something I wish they would have done during Pumpkin Lord's year to actually incorporate Little Boo more, because they put him all over the merch. He was loved. I can see characters, wearing a costume of Little Boo, right? So let's have Little Boo try to escape the realm of the pumpkin. Then we're going to get to our last scare zone, which is going to be in Hollywood. This is going to be Lights, Camera, Action, Cut the Cameras. This is going to be Eddie. Obviously, he's out. He's released from the lantern. Even if you don't believe he is in the lantern, he's released from it. And like before, Lights, Camera, Action is happening. Eddie loves making his films, and he's making films again in Hollywood. But with him being a side character, with him being not honestly an icon, even though some may see him as an icon, and I see him as an icon, he wasn't formally introduced as that icon, right? He was shoveled in 2001. So with him being that side character, he's going to be interrupted by someone who's a little bit older, right? Someone who was a little bit older than their debut year, and who also didn't get the icon recognition that she deserved. He's going to be interrupted by the caretaker's daughter, Cindy, hence the cut the cameras thing. Cindy's much older now, and she wants to be an actress, right? She's been trapped in the lantern with her father. She wants to get out of the mortuary business, and she wants to go to Hollywood. But obviously, Cindy is not all right in the head, and she's bringing along her devilish creations with her. Her dolls, her little, minions. She's going to have all that interrupting the hot set that Eddie is trying to do. And obviously, Eddie's going to be frustrated with this, revving his chainsaw, and Cindy's just going to mock him. So that's what this scare zone is going to be all about. It's going to be Eddie and Cindy together. So that wraps up all the scare zones for my dream year, but we're not done, right? We got to get to the shows. So let's get to the shows of my dream year of HHN. So the first show is going to be at Fear Factor stage, much like it is now with Nightmare Fuel, and that's not going to change for me because I like Nightmare Fuel. So we're going to have Nightmare Fuel back with Nightmare Fuel Reignited or something like that, right? It's going to be a Nightmare Fuel show. I don't have any specifics of how I'd like it. I like Nightmare Fuel as it is, so Nightmare Fuel would be my event. Then we're going to utilize the Animal Actor stage. This is something they did in the older years of HHN that they don't do now, and that is going to be the return of Bill and Ted. In Bill and Ted's Return to Halloween's Adventure. Obviously, it's going to be the same Bill and Ted show, but with, that sappy welcome back. Obviously, we don't know if they'd stay there for the next year, but this is going to be their welcome back. And our final show would be a Lagoon Show. Why not have 3 shows, right? We only have 1 this year. We've had 2 in the past. Let's make it 3. 3 shows, we'll have a Lagoon Show here. And that Lagoon Show is not going to be a Lagoon Show you're used to. It's not going to be the showcases of the, IPs. It's going to be Fear's finale, New Blood. This Lagoon Show is going to follow Dr. Oddfellow and Fear fighting over the lantern. This is going to basically be the final act of Halloween Horror Nights. I don't know exactly how the story would go, but I would just love to see, projections of Fear and Dr. Oddfellow fighting over this lantern while the icons are laughing and going about trying to just have their freedom for the time being, not giving a care in the world, right? And that's what this Lagoon Show would be. It's not going to be the IP showcase. It's going to be lore heavy. So that is my dream year for Halloween Horror Nights. I know it would never happen. It's too massive. It's too much of the grand scale. Bringing in Fright Nights and all of these icons, it would never happen. But it's something I would love to see. So let me know how you thought about my year of HHN, my dream year, down below. And shout out to my good friend Losh TV for his idea, for the inspiration here. Obviously, coming out of Imaginary World, Halloween Horror Nights 32 is less than a month away. We are on the final countdown here. So we have a bunch more videos coming to you soon for the actual event. So if you like HHN, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification icon down below so you're always notified whenever we post here. We'll have a lot coming in August for you as far as live streams and things like that. And, obviously when the event actually happens, we will be there opening night to cover that for you as well. Also, if you did participate in our 1K giveaway in the last video, the results for that will be revealed on this Sunday night's live stream, so make sure you check that one out. And speaking of live streams, don't go away. We're speaking of live streams. We're going to have the most hyped live stream ever. It's going to be huge, okay? Listen to me. We are going to be having the Halloween Horror Nights 32 Opening Night Eve live stream. It is going to be a 4-hour event. 4 hours. If you've been in our live streams before, you know they're never that long. But this one's going to be huge. It's going to be the night before Halloween Horror Nights opening night, August 31st. Going to have some crazy goals for you guys, like goals and member goals. And we're going to be doing some crazy, honestly dangerous things. So it's something you're going to want to tune in and see and experience all the hype that's going to be in that live chat. All right, I'm done with you now. Let's keep moving on. And if you want to become a member of the channel to join the Haunted Homies, you can do that as well through the link in our description for exclusive content from the Horror Fiends, including live stream after parties, exclusive access to a Discord channel, and first look at these videos before they premiere on the actual channel for everyone else. But besides that, it's almost time for Horror Nights, baby. So I will see you in the fog, and I will see you in the morgue.